Hey everyone, Life Coach Carissa here. I tell you, it feels like we're living in a world that's a giant pressure cooker, right? Between the rising cost of everything, it seems, groceries, rent, and just existing, most of us are stuck in a state of constant financial hypervigilance. But here's the truth. Even if you had $1 million in the bank tomorrow, if your internal wiring is set to scarcity, you still wouldn't feel safe. So today we're talking about inherited scarcity. We're looking at why we try to connect our peace to our bank accounts, how our childhood money stories are still running our adult lives, and how you can finally start to feel safe. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This month, we are tackling a topic that can often weigh heavily on individuals and add stress to their relationships: money. But we aren't talking about spreadsheets or stocks. We're going to be talking about the relationship you have with money and how that is often at the heart of the exhaustion you feel. You know, for many, money is the number one stressor in their life. We are seeing a literal squeeze on our basic needs: housing, food, transportation. It's real, it's loud, and it's triggering our primitive survival brain every single day. But here's where it gets more complicated. We've been taught that the only solution to financial stress is to do more. Work more hours, buy more things to feel successful, and hustle until we're numb. We've been sold a lie that says our safety is a moving target that we have to chase. We don't pause to ask, do I really need this? Or am I just trying to buy a feeling of security that money can't actually provide? We are exhausting ourselves for things that just create more work and make more stress to manage. Now, I've been through this. 6 years ago and more, my financial anxiety was suffocating. It was a downward spiral of panic. I can remember each and every time I would sit down to pay the bills, this wave of anxiety would fill my body and I would react in very unhealthy ways. And I used to think that if I could just hit a certain number in the bank, I'd finally be able to breathe. But I remember a moment when I surpassed that number in my head and I still didn't feel safe. That was my awakening. I realized that safety isn't a figure on a screen, it's a feeling in the body. If your not enough wound is open, no amount of money will ever be a big enough bandage. And I'm talking about this today because I encounter clients that are struggling with the same exact feelings. And I know this so well because I lived it. I grew up in a family business, and from the age of 7, I'm going to go with, because I have evidence of age 7. I don't know if it was present before that, but I think I became a student of scarcity. I still have my very first little bank passbook, and I would walk to the bank to deposit a single dollar I'd earned. And I would note on there, with pride, what I did to earn it. For real. But I remember another habit that I had. And every time I withdrew money, I wrote Y in red ink. To my 7-year-old brain, red meant danger. It meant not good. Something's wrong. So clearly, I did not have a healthy relationship with earning and spending. I had a relationship with fear. And I can remember watching my mother have to come up with some money for something that I might need at school, because discussing it with my father probably would have started a problem and it would have been unwelcomed. And so I saw that financial control was a weapon or a power. So I entered adulthood with a nervous system wired to believe that money was something to be feared, defended, and hoarded. And so I carried that red ink story into my marriage, into my new business, and it created a suffering that no paycheck was going to fix. And as I always want to make sure I make it clear, I do not blame my parents for all this. They were doing the best that they could with the tools that they had, right? They were just passing on what they had experienced and what had been handed down to them. But that's why I have been spending the last 6 years in saying, you know what? I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this so that my children and their children can have a different experience with this specific thing, right? And in this case, we're talking about money. So where does it start? It starts with your inherited programming. Like think back to your dinner table talk or the unspoken narrative about money in your home. Was money a tool or a threat? What do you remember about money growing up? I can also remember another story of receiving a $10 bill in the mail from my grandmother, and somehow I lost it. I want to say I was 10 at the time, which was probably why I got the $10. And I remember feeling physically ill and going crazy, retracing my steps to try to locate it. Now, there really wasn't a voice of reason around me because I remember my dad not being too thrilled about it either. So spend a few minutes thinking back and see if you can remember any early money stories that you still carry with you. Now, to help you with that, I came up with 5 questions to help you uncover some roots of your relationship with money, which will allow you to see potentially how this is still impacting you today. And I really encourage you to circle back to this part of the video, and I will want you to pause and honestly ask yourself these questions. And you know what? It would be even better if you grabbed your journal and write your answers down, because that has been a tremendous opportunity for growth when you record this, okay? So the first one is a little bit of a environmental sort of check-in, right? What kind of atmosphere you grew up in. So when money was discussed in your house growing up, what was that temperature of the room? Was it cold and silent or hot and explosive? It's sad to say, when my kids were younger, it was definitely hot and explosive in our house talking about money. And they still share with me today things that they heard, witnessed that have impacted their view of money today. The next one is the secret. Was money used as a tool for control or a secret between your parents? I often hear people talk about how they have hidden money from each other. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it would be really interesting to go back and see where that mindset came from. So did you learn that money equals power or money equals fear? And that would be really great to look at. The next question is kind of surrounding those unexpected expenses, a little bit of a test, right? So when a surprise bill hits, which we all know they are going to be, so they're not really surprises, right? The specific of what it is may be a surprise, but we should not be surprised when unexpected things come up. So maybe it's a car repair or a medical bill. What is the first thing you feel in your body? Is it a pivot to a solution, or is it a spiral into panic and survival? Okay. 4th question. And this is like a little bit of like obsessiveness or, overlooking, over calculating. So do you have, or I should say, do you avoid looking at your bank account because the fog feels safer than the facts? Or do you check it obsessively as a way to soothe your anxiety? So much insight there. And the last one would be about this safety idea, right? So, there's this target. And so if you doubled your income tomorrow, would you actually feel twice as safe? Or would your safe number just move farther away? Would it get bigger? And I can speak from experience that the goal just keeps moving on you and you're constantly chasing the antidote to what you're feeling, which you think is more money, but it's actually not. Money does give you options and choices. I will not deny that. But it's also true that you can always have the ability to create more through the value you provide. And no one can take that ability away from you. So I want you to also recognize that it's not entirely about where our money stories began, but it's also the fact that we're working with this motivational triad, which is our brains want to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and exert as little energy as possible. The motivational triad. So we seek comfort by buying things we don't need or wasting hours in our unmanaged time because we're just too exhausted to be creative. So the truth is, money is just a reflection of value. And when you spend your time bettering your mindset and contributing your unique gifts to the world, value flows back to you. But you cannot create that value from a state of panic. Panic kills creativity. And if we took all the energy that we spend on financial hypervigilance and rechanneled it into possibility, what could we create? So I had to learn that making things happen doesn't come from harsh willpower. It comes from subtle, intentional, powerful actions taking with a belief in your own capacity. So I want to give you some practical advice where you can start to change this today. 3 things. Number 1, identify your lack filter. Okay? Scarcity is a theme. If you feel not enough in your bank account, check if you also feel not enough in your time, your relationships, or even your own self-worth. It is all the same wound. Number 2, we need a little bit of a truth-telling session. Be honest. Are you actually in financial danger right now? I can remember having moments of feeling panic when I was leaving my former career and starting fresh at age 47. And I had these lies going on, right? Because I remember being at the gas station and I saw a woman putting in $5 worth of gas in her car. And I realized that my panic was a lie. I had my needs met, so much so that I even had non-essential needs met. So stop telling your brain you're in a crisis when you are simply in a challenge. And number 3, anchor your nervous system. We've been talking about nervous systems a lot this year, right? In different aspects. So when an unplanned expense hits, don't spiral. When your bank account is getting too low, breathe. Use an anchor statement. I chose this. I chose my situation. Or I am capable of creating value to cover this. I can have my own back. I can get creative. I can come up with new ideas. Because you are a human being, not a productivity project. You were not born to spend your life reading the bank account for permission to exist safely. You are allowed to live a simpler, slower, more abundant life right now. So be sure to write these down, as this will be able to help you, and you can call upon them in the moments that you need them the most. So be sure to write those 3 tips down. My brain was addicted to the survival story because it didn't know how to exist in abundance. And if I'm being real with you, yours probably is too. We have to stop lying to our nervous systems. We tell ourselves we're stressed about the economy, about our about our amount of money that we have in the bank. But the truth is, many of us are actually terrified of being okay. Why? Because if you're finally okay, you don't know who you are anymore. If you aren't the hustler, the striver, the worrier, then who are you? For a lot of us, the struggle is only identity. It's the only identity we've ever known. It's the red ink story example that I carried since I was 7 years old. But here is the wake-up call. Your bank account is not proof of your worth. It is just a tool. And using your precious one and only life to stress over finances is a waste of your genius. You were not born to be a professional bill payer. You were not born to be a survival expert. You can retrain your brain. You can evolve your money mindset. But it starts with the most uncomfortable truth of all. You are allowed to be safe right now, exactly as you are, before a single digit in your bank account changes. The not enough wound ends the moment you stop deciding to feed it your peace. So, what are you waiting for? Are you going to keep living your childhood money story? Or are you ready to finally inhabit your own? All right, everyone. If that hit a nerve, it's because your system knows it's time to change. Don't just let this be another video you watch or listen to, okay? Reclaiming your relationship with money is a journey of reclaiming your worth, and you may have inherited the wiring of scarcity, but you don't have to keep running those old family scripts. You can start building a life of peace and contentment today, regardless of the economy. Now, if you want to go deeper into your unique inherited programming, my book, Why Am I Like This, is a great place to start. And if you're in my area, you can find it at the local libraries, or you can head on over to Amazon and get your copy now. And if you're ready to stop feeling stuck in a loop and start working one-on-one to rewire your nervous system for abundance, book a no-cost clarity call with me by visiting my website at lifecoachingwithcarissa.com. Okay, my friends, stay present, stay curious. I will see you in the next deep dive. Have a beautiful day.